I'm Amy. Thank you for tuning in. I'm really excited about today's video because I'm joined by my very good friend and amazing author, Mia Kuzniar, who is the author of Ship of Shadows and a new adult book called Midnight in Everwood, which I've just started reading and is absolutely fantastic. So welcome, Mia.
Hi, Amy. Thanks so much for having me.
You are welcome. Thank you. And thank you so much for joining me and being here to chat about your brilliant books and writing process. So to start us off, can you tell me a little bit, and everyone watching, a little bit about your books?
Okay, so I have written, well, I've written more books than this, but they're coming out this year. So I've written the Ship of Shadows series with Puffin, which is a middle grade series about an all-female pirate ship. And then my first adult book, Midnight in Everwood, which I have some very nice proofs for with lots of pretty gold foil, is coming out this October, and it is an adult retelling of the Nutcracker.
And it's absolutely beautifully written. I think one of the reasons I wanted to talk to you, although Mia and I talk quite regularly about our books and just anything else that occurs to us, but I was really fascinated in talking to you about what brought you to write middle grade and adult, completely opposite, well, not quite opposite ends of the spectrum, but almost. So kind of what made you write that? Did you know when you started your writing career that you were going to explore different audiences?
I did. I didn't know that it would be specifically middle grade and adult, but I've always known that I have a lot of stories to tell and I want to get them out in whatever kind of format suits them best.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? That I think some writers, Mia, I'd say you're the kind of overabundance of ideas person. Like when you message me and you say, I've got this idea, I've got that idea. And I tend to find that part quite difficult. And as soon as I get into a book, I can really get going with it. But I'd say in my head, I've got maybe one or two other book ideas. And how many would you say you've got kind of on the boil in your head at the moment that you could write?
Oh my God, I have so many. It's ridiculous. I constantly get new ideas and I'm writing them down and plaguing my lovely agent with all my ideas that I have. And I have to put most of them on the back burner. But now I've got a few that I'm kind of more excited about. So hopefully we'll see some things soon.
Oh, I'm sure we will. I think you're one of the most prolific people I know, having all these different projects and audiences that you write for.
Thank you.
So in terms of writing, you've obviously at points been working on a middle grade series and adult books. What do you think are the main things that you have to be mindful of when you're writing for the different audiences?
Mainly the pace and the dialogue, I think. They're the things that tend to be quite different when you're writing middle grade. You know, you need these very short, pacey chapters, and the dialogue tends to be a lot shorter and to the point. And then you've got adult, where you can really slow the pace down and kind of really explore what's going on. And the characters tend to waffle on a lot more, and you can get away with a bit more description as well in adult, which is nice because I really like writing descriptive scenes and settings a lot. But with middle grade, you have to kind of keep it quite punchy.
Yeah, I think you're really good at doing that. In the Ship of Shadows book, I was really impressed by, although you have to be quite concise with the wording in middle grade, I think your descriptions are just really beautiful, like the way you evoke the senses. And then you've obviously extrapolated that in Midnight in Everwood, and it's just this amazing sensory feast that makes you kind of hungry, thirsty, and every other emotion under the every other sense under the sun. So do you,
cake is my brand across all my books. Cake is my brand.
I was just going to talk to you about brand. I think you are also one of the most like people with the clearest brand that I know, because you've got, if anybody doesn't know, Mia's got an amazing Instagram. I never said channel, we're on a YouTube channel. Instagram account, is that what you call it? What are you called on Instagram, Mia, in case people want to check it out?
I'm called Cozy Reads, and I'm famous for my hot chocolates.
Yes.
Usually book, but mainly the hot chocolates.
And I think that's really cool that your Instagram brand and your book brand have this feel of coziness, as you're called on Instagram. And although your adult stuff, I was actually surprised that it gets quite dark, and I love that because I'm all about dark things. But are you mindful of that coziness and your brand when you're writing things, or do you think that just comes through naturally?
I think it just comes through because I'm quite a cozy creature myself. As you can see, like I like being kind of in my jumpers, I've got my blankets, my cushions. And when I'm reading a book, those are the kind of things I like to read about. You know, I love to read about a cabin in the snow, or I don't know, just these really kind of cozy settings. And I try and put that into my books because I like a good fast-paced plot, but I also am really drawn to books where the author kind of allows you to have a moment to just sit with the characters and kind of, I don't know, have like a cozy moment with them, like a brief kind of interlude. I like those bits the best.
Yeah, my agent taught me to do that when I wrote the first draft. Well, not the first, probably the 20th draft of it. By the time she got, I don't think it was even called Mina and the Undead then. But she said that I needed a couple of moments where the characters, they're going through this stressful stuff. And in real life, if you're having a really bad time, you would need to just sit and watch a film or sit and have a pizza. And that's where you can kind of let the reader and the characters breathe and have some character development. So that's not something that comes naturally to me. But now I'm aware of it, I really like finding those moments in books as well. And I think in The Ship of Shadows, and I'm sure in Midnight in Everwood, when I get a little bit further on, you're really good at that balance of pace and kind of, you know, sea monsters and all exciting stuff happening, and then they sit and eat cake.
Thank you. Yeah,
The best kind of book.
The cake eating is very important.
So when you start writing a book, do you know that it is going to be, like, for example, Ship of Shadows, did you know that that was going to be a children's book?
Yes, I did. Nutcracker is actually Nutcracker. Sorry, that's what I call it, like my code name. Midnight in Everwood. All of my books have like a code name, by the way, that my agent and I, and my friends and I, kind of refer to them by. But yeah. Anyway, Midnight in Everwood is actually the only book I've written, or the only book idea I've had, where I didn't know what it was going to be, because it's a story that can be retold in middle grade, in YA, in adult, and you can take it a different interpretation for each age group. But the rest of my story ideas I've always known from like the start.
Yeah, I think Midnight in Everwood has that feel where I could have read it when I was a teenager and really enjoyed it. I don't know how steamy it gets later, so I'll maybe reassess that when I get to the end. But is it not that steamy? But in terms of the content, it's definitely adult, but I think it has that kind of crossover appeal. So I think it's going to be amazing, and loads of people are going to read it. I'm really excited. So in terms of the publicity, I'm interested in the fact that you got the hardcover proof. So that was the early proof, wasn't it? And then a more recent paperback has come out.
This is the hardback proof, which has a beautiful starry
Oh, that is beautiful.
It is beautiful. They only printed, I think, 30 of these
Wow.
copies, which obviously went out to a few bloggers, a few kind of media people, a few authors. So, yeah.
I think it's a really great publicity idea.
It's like fangirling.
No, I think that's all I wanted to do. I just wanted to see the hardcover proof again. No, I think what I was just going to comment on was the fact that I think publicity is such an important thing for a book. Like, you can write an amazing book, and if it doesn't have the right forces behind it, nobody will know about it. But I think that yours seems to have already developed a real buzz, so that's really exciting.
HQ Stories have done an amazing job with the publicity for this one. I feel really lucky to kind of be on their team and working with them.
Oh, that's really, really cool. I'm going to have to consult my questions because I've just got obsessed by your proof and forgotten what I was going to say next. Oh, that was something else I want to ask you. Something we've never really talked about. I know you've given me a little bit of guidance on my Instagram. You may have noticed, if you look at my Instagram account, that my pictures have improved recently, and that's because Mia's shown me how to take pictures. They're not obviously anywhere near the standard of hers, but I'm interested in, you seem to have a constant supply of beautiful content and interesting things to say. I'm just wondering, how do you organize that? Is it a day-by-day basis and it's quite ad hoc? Is it planned out in advance? Like, what do you do? What's your secret?
A bit of both. I try and do photo shoots every kind of week. It's more like week and a half to 2 weeks, where I take quite a few in bulk, but then I can also take them kind of like you said, ad hoc, just take them. The ones that have kind of more of a less chaotic background, or that are kind of a more simpler background, those are the ones that I've taken kind of like just that evening to post. But yeah, I don't feel like it's as organized as it looks.
It does.
It feels chaotic from the inside.
No, from the outside it looks really good. I like the fact that you're quite open with the comments, like you say what you're working on in terms of your writing or what you've been doing, and I think that creates the lovely kind of cozy story that you've become known for. So in terms of taking pictures, do you find that you have to adapt them? So if you've taken, like, I don't know, 5 maybe using the same stuff, how do you make it seem fresh and different for each book that you pose?
Well, I try different angles. I try different kind of like props. Sometimes I'll run and change my jumper. So I've got like different sleeve in it.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Or I'll make a different hot chocolate or something. I also try and split them up with other photos from like older photo shoots I haven't used yet. Or in the middle of it, I'll take like a couple of spontaneous ones that day and just kind of break it up a bit. They do get a bit samey now and then. I think it's like any creative thing, you can kind of fall into a bit of a rut with it. So some days I take photos, I'm like, oh, this one looks really good. I'm so happy with how this came out. And other days I'm like, everything looks rubbish. Like I can't take a photo anymore. So I think it kind of, I don't know, I think it kind of depends. And
I think a lot of that's perception, isn't it, of yourself? I've never looked at one of your pictures and gone, oh, she's letting a standard slip. Like, I think they all look really great.
that's a relief.
Oh, that's really interesting. Thank you. So I'm going to consult the questions again. Oh, this is another thing. I've not really asked you about your publication journey. So I went through the quite traditional route. I pitched to my agent at Yalk, where we met in person, and I think I did like a 1-minute pitch maybe. And then I ended up querying traditionally and also querying her and got offered the book deal, and we went like the traditional route. Did you do something similar with yours?
Yeah, I just did the very, very standard querying.
So what was that process like for you? Did it take very long, or were you quite quick to find an agent?
Well, I set myself 18 months to find an agent when I moved back to the UK from Spain. I said, 18 months, I'm going to take 18 months without working, and I'm going to write full time, kind of existing, a bit off my savings, a bit of mooching off my husband. And I'm going to try and make something happen. And I wrote a few different books in that time. I queried a YA book first, and I was really bad at querying, you know. I had such bad short patience with it. I'd write a book, I'd query it with like 5 to 10 agents, and then I'd be like, okay, that's done, I'm going to write a new book. Rather than kind of keep sending it out like you're supposed to. But it was fine. It worked in the end. I got an agent for The Ship of Shadows, which is my lovely agent, Therese Cohen with Hardman and Swainson. And that was also the book that got me my first publishing deal.
Cool. I think it's interesting, isn't it? I have queried a few times, and one book I sent a query out, and an agent said something about it that was actually wrong. She said I got a date wrong, and I was like, no, I haven't. I've researched that really carefully. And for some reason, like I queried that and I just didn't get a vibe. I liked the book, but for whatever reason, that I think put me off. That hurt. She just sort of shot me down, and I think it just, I don't know, I wasn't quite ready mentally. Even if that book was okay, I don't think it would probably sell in the current climate. It was another YA. But it's funny, whereas other ones, I have queried one other thing seriously before, and that one I kept on going and kind of exhausted it because I thought that could get a book deal. And in the end, it didn't. It came close. I came close to getting an agent, but nothing really happened with it. But then when I wrote this one, which was called, I think, Empire of the Dead at the time, because that's the name of the bar in the book. I'm glad I didn't call it that, because Jay Kristoff's book that's coming out later this year is called Empire of Vampires, I think, or Empire of the Vampire or something like that. So that would have ended up really weirdly similar. But yeah, it's interesting, isn't it, that you write something, and I was quite sure that would get an agent, but you still just don't know because you're putting it out there into that submission process. You have no idea.
Yeah, it's such a weird job as well, really, because for 95% of the time you're just at home alone on your laptop, so you think, oh, this could be really good, or I could be completely delusional and this is a load of rubbish. And it's quite hard to kind of gauge your own work sometimes, I think, and you're so close to it as well, you can't really look at it objectively.
Yeah, especially because you edit it so many times. I wish I'd kept count of how many times I'd edited Mina and the Undead, but it was a lot. I'd say maybe upwards of 20, certainly, maybe nearer 50. I don't know. But yeah, I've read it a lot of times. And I think part of that's my personality, that I'm a bit of a perfectionist. But some people do say, yeah. I was just going to say, we're really bad at this. Keep going. Whatever you're going to say.
It's got a really good twisty plot though, Mina has, so I can see why that would have taken work to like get it all placed just perfectly.
Yeah, I think that was the hardest thing. And some of the plot twists, when I thought of them, I was like, oh, I like that, but now I've got to go and spend the whole book like seeding that through. And that plot twist has set a chain of reactions that means that one doesn't work anymore. So yeah, maybe that's the nature of the book. So in terms of editing yours, what is your writing process like? And editing? Like, do you feel that you write a really polished first draft, or do you do a lot of that at the editing stage?
Well, Amy, as you know, have a bit of a weird drafting process.
I love it. I'm just leading you into it. Pretend I don't already know about it.
So I tend to write 3 drafts of, whatever book I'm working on, and then kind of a quick polish up, which I don't really count as a draft because it's more kind of just going over little things. So 3 drafts. And I just go through from the beginning to the end. I've already plotted everything out. I know kind of all the key beats I need to hit, but I kind of leave myself room for like some surprises along the way. So I have like a few bullet points per chapter, basically, not like every single conversation and scene plotted out. And I go through and I write it. And when I get to a bit that I find a bit difficult, I stop writing and I start bullet pointing it, what's going to happen, or just ideas that I have for in that scene. So basically what happens is I end up writing a really thin first draft with lots of gaps and holes where I've just bullet pointed it and kind of written, write something interesting here. Sometimes entire chapters missing. Then I'll say, okay, yeah, that's done. Don't want to work on that anymore. And then I come back to it for the second draft and I start going through it and filling in the gaps, filling in the holes, but not all of them. And then I get to my third draft where I fill in the remaining kind of holes. And each time I go through one of these drafts, I'm also polishing up what I've already written before. So it's quite a weird drafting process. Like for Midnight, for example, when I first wrote it, it was about 75,000 words. It's ended up about 95,000, I think.
All right.
My first draft for it was only 30,000 words.
Wow, that's amazing.
My second draft went up to about 50,000, and my third draft is when I kind of hit 75,000. So you can see I kind of write thin and fill it in.
That's amazing. And I actually have tried it because I'm normally one of those people who is a really slow drafter. I draft and then if I'm stuck, I have to really dwell on that. And it might take me then a week to carry on writing. So because you suggested that, I thought I'd give it a go. And what I've ended up doing was writing a placeholder scene, which I know isn't great. So for example, there's a scene where I needed you to meet this new character and I don't know exactly how you're going to do it yet in my work in progress. And right. I just plopped them into a scene and I know that the scene is going to be improved, but it feels quite freeing that I've got it there now and I know that she's in the book and I don't have to worry about it. And then when I come back, what I've had to do, because I'm me, I've had to flag that is a scene I'm not happy with. Otherwise I would just have to keep stewing over it. But it's great because now I'm on the next scene and that could have taken me like 2 weeks of angsting, and instead I wrote it out in half an hour, the scene, and I'm just moving on. So is that the main reason behind that thought process of the bullet pointing?
Absolutely. I find it very freeing to do that. I don't get stuck as often. I can move past things faster. I also find sometimes there's a reason why I couldn't write the scene at the time. And maybe the reason is I needed to kind of write beyond that and figure something else out in the writing. So when I've gone through the whole book and come back, cycled back again to the beginning, I now know more about the book, about the story, about the characters, and I suddenly find I can suddenly write the scene that I was stuck on before.
Oh, that's really cool. I've not thought of it that way because I suppose it is a whole world, isn't it, in your head and a whole sequence of events, and you might not have it right. Maybe that's where I've been going wrong, thinking that everything needs to be perfect too early on.
No.
So in terms of your plotting, do you have a particular method that you use for that, or something that you've kind of honed yourself over the years?
No, I don't have any method. I've never really studied writing. The way I've learned writing is just by reading absolutely loads of books always, and watching things like film and TV programs as well can be really good. Kind of getting used to the idea of story and how to plot it out and plan a narrative. But no, I don't do anything kind of formal that I'm aware of.
So do you just make notes on what you think the sequence of events will be? Is that your version of plotting?
Basically, yeah.
Yeah, I do similar. I've tried all sorts. Oh, sorry, I just lost you then. I think I talked over you.
Sorry, I always have to know the end as well. So I have to know kind of everything that happens.
Yeah, I was going to ask you something about that. So you say that you add the different, like the bits that you bullet point out. Have you really been surprised by anything you've written, or do you think that the plotting process takes most of that out for you?
I've been surprised by different scenes I've written. and things. With the book I'm writing at the moment, a new character suddenly popped in and introduced themselves. So there's definitely room for surprises. I would say it's like 80% plotted, but you can do a lot with that kind of 20%.
Yeah, that's good. So
Yeah.
what do you, so you're a full-time writer, aren't you? So what does your writing day look like on an or writing week, if it's easier to think of it that way? Like what's it like to do it full time?
Oh, I love it. I love it so much. My husband is a primary school teacher, so he wakes up very early, and is off for the whole day and then comes back in the evening. I try and write while he's working so we can spend our evenings together and spend our weekends together as well. Although sometimes if I've got deadlines and things, I'll work a bit on the weekend, and sometimes he has marking and things too. But yeah, so I try and do all my writing in those kind of 9 to 5 hours. I like to kind of have a gentle ease into things. I'm not a morning person. I need a lot of coffee to get going. So first there's the coffee, then the writing can kind of like begin.
So do you have anything you stick to in terms of a daily word count or a weekly word count that you try to get done in that time?
No, I think I kind of know instinctively don't you, if you're writing like a decent amount, or if you're kind of if you're kind of procrastinating way too much and you've not written as much as you should have done. But I think having kind of a word count that I need to stick to, I think that would be more restrictive, because if I get stuck on something or something takes me a bit longer to write, but then it's like much better, I don't want to like feel like I can't spend the time on that because I've got to hurry up and write more, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. I think I'm usually of that approach. And for the first time in a long time, I've got quite a strict deadline of something I'm working on now. So that has made me set a word count, but something that at some point I'll be able to talk about, but just not just yet, which Mia already knows about. So, luckily good friends keep good secrets. But yeah, so I am having to write to a word count at the moment, and it's worked up until now. I've been writing 750 to 100 words a day, because that I write in an evening, sometimes on my baby naps if he's napping for a while. And I find that I can do that, but last night it just wasn't working, and it was the first day since I've started this draft where I had to really push myself to write anything, and in the end I did just stop. I'd written 400 words and I thought, this is just going to hurt me and it's not going to be great for the book either. So do you ever just have a day where you think, nope, it's not happening today, and you do something else for your writing or just for yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you can't force it. I think I'm more productive because on the days where I don't feel like I can do it, or if I feel like, I don't know, headachy or whatever, or something's happened that's distracted me or stressed me out, I will give myself some time to kind of like, deal with that and not try and force myself to write. I think we all have days now and then where you just kind of, you need a bit of a breather. You need to kind of stop and catch your breath and get re-inspired as well.
Yeah, I've been talking to a few writers about that recently with the group that I'm in with Mia, actually, on Twitter. And it's interesting how often one of us will say that we've got to a point where, whether because of something personal or something to do with writing, where you just need a break and you need that kind of creative well to fill back up again. Because I think if you're not feeling physically healthy and mentally equipped to write something, it's just not going to happen. And I've kind of learned that the hard way over the years, that you can't force it.
No, you definitely can't. And I find because if I look after myself, I can then write even more on the days where I am productive and kind of, all happy and into it, and my creative wells all nicely topped up. I can really go for it on those days, and it kind of evens out. So I'm happy with that.
Yeah. So what's the most you've ever written in a day? Can you remember the word count?
Oh my God, I did a crazy amount once in one day, and I've never ever been able to get even close since. I think it was about 8,000 words.
That's a
It
lot.
was one time, and I've never got even close since. I think usually I get to around anything between like 1,000 upwards, I'm kind of happy with per day.
Yeah.
My usual amount is like 1 to 3,000.
I think
Kind of
that's quite, yeah.
out of a really good day, and like more average day would be more like 2, and then a rubbish day would be more like kind of 1, or like 850, but I pretend it's like 1.
Round it up, it's close enough.
But
Sorry, I keep talking over Mia, and the reason for that, I think, is that Mia and my brains work in the same way, and we just, when we have conversations, like, we layer on top of each other, don't we? So this is quite normal.
Yeah.
I'm not being really rude, honestly. So I have a couple more questions, then we will probably end it so we can talk about some of the secret stuff that we're going to talk about. So last couple of questions then. Have you got any middle grade or adult books, or any books really, that you would recommend to people who want to read something cozy like you write, apart from your books, obviously?
Pages and Co by Anna
Oh,
James. Brilliant cozy series. They're set in bookshops, and you see kind of some of your favorite childhood characters like Alice from Alice in Wonderland kind of appear in them, and yeah, they're brilliant. Very nice and cozy. I like those.
excellent. I
And
still haven't read them.
oh, they're really good. I need to read her latest one, but I've read the first two and I love them both. And adult books, I'm trying to think. You know, when someone asks you what books you like and you read loads and you suddenly can't remember a single book.
Maybe I can add them to the description if you think of any, it's fine. And maybe it's just that yours are the adult books that everybody needs. They are the cozy reads we've all been waiting for.
I hope so. That would be great.
So can you give any tips? People also hate this question as well, I'm sorry, but can you give any tips to people just in general for writing, or people who want to write middle grade or adult? Do you have any writing advice that you think is useful for aspiring authors?
I mean, everyone says it, but they say it because it's true. Read widely what's out there, what's popular. You kind of get a feel for what's already been done. You might spark some ideas for yourself. Like I said, reading middle grade, if you want to be a middle grade author, is a really good way to get your head around kind of like the pacing and how fast and snappy it needs to be, and the writing style, the language level, all of those things. And same for adult as well. Read within your genre to kind of get a feel for it and things, see what people are doing.
Yeah, that is really good advice. I always think as well, having trusted people either to talk about writing with and to have read your writing is my stock advice that I give, because I don't think until I started getting really good feedback from knowledgeable people, I think that's when my writing career actually started to be something that might make me money.
I'm the opposite. I've always been
Really?
I'm always really secretive and guarded about my things. I only ever share them with like people I really, really trust, which means not many people actually read them. When Ship of Shadows, when I was querying that, only my husband had read it.
I take that as a compliment then, because I've read things that Mia has written and they're all excellent. Yeah, I think I used to be a bit scared of letting people read stuff because I didn't necessarily want the feedback, because I thought I wouldn't be able to take it. And also, I think finding trusted people, I did once let a friend read something and she just put me off doing anything with that story because she really slated it. And I think I need to pull it out because actually it might be decent, but I think if you get the wrong critique partner, it can like put you on a bit of a downer. But so I did a program called Write Mentor, and that's when I got my agent fairly soon after that. So I ended up with one new critique partner from that, Hannah Cates, who is a fantastic writer. And I've picked up people like Mia along the way, who I now send stuff to, force it into her hands to read it. And
there's no forcing. I'm like snatching it.
And I think that I've now probably got about 5 people that read my stuff, maybe a couple more sometimes, and there's a couple more that I'm like hope that I love their books and I'm hoping that they might read stuff I've written. So maybe the further I've got down the line, the better I feel about it, and I have found it really useful. And talking to Mia, sometimes I've come to her and said I've got an issue with this scene, and as I'm talking it through, I figure it out myself, or she just asks one question like, well, what, and maybe not even like suggesting a solution, but just digging and asking me things. And I think having a sounding board, I know that you found it useful as well, Mia. We have these little chats and it does just get the ideas going.
Oh yeah, for my second adult book that I'm working on at the moment, Amy, just chatting with Amy, with you, sorry.
Fine.
You and your audience here.
That's fine, both is fine.
Having to you kind of really helped me figure out something that I was stuck on with the timeline, and yeah, that was very useful.
I think you figured it out yourself.
Yeah, I figured it out myself. It was my own idea. But sometimes you need to just talk it through to someone.
You do, and somebody to be difficult. I quite like playing devil's advocate, and even if I do agree with what you're saying, but does that work? And are you sure about that? And what if this person's reading it or that thing happens in the book? And I think those challenging questions can really push you. I try and ask myself them as well, but sometimes it's better for another person to do it, definitely.
I think those challenging questions are also a great way a great way to figure out if you've got any plot holes or not.
Yeah, definitely. So that conversation's been a little bit different from my usual ones. It's nice to talking to somebody that I know so well, because I think you're getting a little bit of a real insight into the people behind the writing and into our writing processes. So I hope you've enjoyed this look into mine and Mia's brains, and that you might have gleaned some useful writing advice from it. So Mia, when is your adult book out? Is it October?
Yes, my adult book, Midnight in Everwood, is out October the 28th. And the second book in the Ship of Shadows series, Secrets of the Stars, is out on July the 8th.
I pre-ordered it. I'm so excited. I thought it was June now. I'm really disappointed now. I've got to wait a little bit longer. Oh, thanks, Mia.
July.
Not that you set that date or anything, but I'm going to hold it personally. So we've got to wait till July for your middle grade and October for your adult. That's exciting. Definitely would recommend, if you've got time to read Ship of Shadows, if you haven't read it before. It's one of my favorite middle grade books. As Mia said, the female pirates who go on adventures together is just fantastic. And there is cake and a magical ship. It's just amazing. So I hope you check out Mia's books. But in the meantime, thank you for watching this video. Thank you for people who have supported me. I'm really enjoying doing these YouTube videos, and I've got some exciting things lined up, more author interviews, some videos about my writing and about my reading. So I hope you'll stay with me and watch my old videos. So thank you very much for tuning in. Bye. Thank you.